So go to top tab, image, and then image size, and change the resolution from 72 to 200. Okay. And then let's see how the detail work. The reason why I mentioned then where whether you think the term "thing" is that if you think that you finished the line work, when you go deep inside of the detail of the line work, you probably see the things you missed for detail. So please use erasers and use like smaller. You try to finish each line work. Try to fill the corner.
This one doesn't have a pen.
Oh, here.
With it. I don't know. Oh, thanks.
I don't know which one
It's
lost.
22.
And then to compare, to check whether you have all the lines or not, just hide the image layer and view to compare. I think I still need some line work for the detail, the object above the shell. Please work on the details. Neatness is really important, and then if you finish this rendering with the neatness, I mean this could be another great portfolio for a job application. Okay, let's say that you finish your sketch, and here, please lock your sketch layer. Click the dashed circle and then lock layer. Click and hold the dashed circle on the layer tab and lock layer. Because you're not going to touch the layer. And let's add another layer above the sketch layer. But after you make a new layer, move the layer below the sketch layer as we did in another Photoshop assignment. Sketch layer should be above the whole layer. Oh,
the sketch layer should be above the new layer?
Yeah, yes. Sketch layer, always put the sketch layer above the whole layer, right, as we did in the elevation and the Photoshop renderings. And there are some points that we need to put the new layer above the sketch layer, but not this point. Make a new layer and let's compare the original file. Or let's turn it on the image layer and then change the opacity to 100% to see how to navigate for next step. Let's unlock the layer and then change the opacity and take a look and analyze lighting, shading, shadows. according to the rendering image, according to the image file. And here the lighting is coming from the foreground, I mean the front window. So and then all the shade and then shadows are coming toward the foreground, like coming toward the viewer. So you see, or you can visit the original image file to see more, like to take a look more vivid color. So all the shadows, I mean, coming toward your side, and then you see the shadows coming toward your side. And you see the reflection here below the window, and the shading is shading of the left and right side wall is getting darker when you're coming closer to the viewer, and then it gets lighter, brighter when it goes closer to the window area. And then the wall, the front wall with the opening has a lot of shade, I mean kind of shadow, because it the light does not touch that area. So that wall should be darkest wall among the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 planes. Their ceiling has some angles. It's hard to see, but you can tell this area. It's a like borderline that divides the wall and the ceiling. That is why the beams has some angle on the above the toward the ceiling. So let's see. So let's start from the shade of the walls. So on the new layer, okay. Since this the middle ground, middle part of the whole view is like bright, and the rest of the each corners getting darker when it gets closer to the corners. So maybe we could add some gradient. Do we have gradient here? Yeah, we do have gradient. Great. Yeah, click the paint bucket icon. It's called flood fill. And then click the radial fill, orangish color with some darkness. And then let's see. And then I need to set that. Click and drag. Then move the middle point like this. So try to make it as close, I mean as similar to the current light setting. So I put the center of the gradient in the middle, as like in the middle of the window, because that must be the center of the light source. Okay, and then click the check mark to confirm. Just for the next process, let's rename the layer gradient fill or whatever it is. Gradient number 1. And then based on current shade, we can use lasso tool here. Click the select tool in the left top panel. Click it and then you'll see the similar variation we found in the Photoshop. So there's a rectangle select tool, an oval select tool, and then two different types of lasso tool. The freehand lasso tool and the other one is polygonal lasso tool. And here you can find the magic wand tool as well. And then these are the the selection option. This is single selection. Second one is add to selection option, and the other one is subtract from selection option. So I'm gonna use it. Start from add to selection option using polygonal lasso tool, and then let's divide some area. Let's start from the floor. Oh, okay. How about this? Compare the view from the reference image. So, what do you think? Which area should be darker compared to the reference image, or lighter? What do you think you're gonna do the next? You're gonna render for next step? Okay, let's start from. How about start from the furniture? Okay, let's start from the furniture. I'm gonna start from the this one, the desk. Use the lasso tool or the magic wand tool to select the area. Go to use magic wand tool. Go back to the sketch layer and then unlock the layer to select the area. Select first the top of the desktop, and then just to avoid the white area around the edge, I want to expand the current selection. Is there any option for that? I don't think we have. Okay, so yeah, this one doesn't have like very much option in Photoshop. Okay, you can either use magic wand tool or also lasso tool, but I would choose lasso tool because I don't want to have like white area around the selected area. So I'm gonna use polygonal lasso tool rather than the magic wand tool, because desk is really easy to select using polygonal lasso tool. But pardon me, you can select one more than one.
If I wanted to I guess I made like the top and the little like front piece, like try to make them like separate polygons, and it won't let you. You have to make it one.
Oh, did you add selection option? Did you turn on the add to selection option?
Oh no, cool. I didn't have that in Photoshop.
It's a little similar with Photoshop, but there are many differences. So when you select the area and then create another new layer, and then let's color it with what color could it be? Let's start from randomly select any color. after you select the area for area to fill color, then go back to the flood fill function, and then you can use flood fill function to fill color, or you can use brush tool in the left side, the brush library. You can either use brush or flood fill. And then select the color. And before I deselect the area, I will start using adding a reflection effect and some shade at the beginning. So after I put the solid color with dark value for desktop desk, and then I'll add a little like bright color for reflection. Current reflection has a little bluish color, so I'm gonna add some blue. And then here you need to play with the brush type. Marker, you can play with the marker as well. I'm gonna play with the marker. It really mimics the function. Oh, it doesn't work. Brush. And then if you like, when you'd like to modify the brush type, double click the brush type you would like to use, and then change size and change opacity, and also you can change the feathers and here boundness. You can smoothen the edge by modifying the edge in Advanced tab. Or you can select any type of tool in a drop-down option. So when you to deselect the area, and then Control D to deselect. And then let's finish the furniture area. So I'm gonna start from the dark area. So this area must be way darker.
Yeah, the noise is up at the top of the piece, and you look draw a little only draw against the lines. Remember to get rid of steamboard if you want to draw it anywhere else, because otherwise you'll be doing this and it'll just be creating a line on the paper.
Not yet.
It happens.
not be like, be more like feathered out.
The feather. So double click the brush type,
Yeah,
and then you'll see the in advanced tab.
Yeah.
You can find the edge, and then
Yeah.
soften the edge.
Okay.
This is how you like change the feather amount.
Okay. Thanks.
Or here you may use the airbrush. I mean airbrush usually support the like a lot amount of feather. So if you like to have a soft brush, use airbrush rather than brush.
Oh yeah, that's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I get that.
It actually works better. Yours like you're back here to roll it. I try like go run across the house to get my spider. Crazy airbrush tool is great. That's because my mom wants to know. Yes.
And also my tablet.
The rest of the process will be really similar with this. Like select the area, fill color, select the area, fill color, deselect, select the area, fill color. And you might need to modify the adding some effect when you are in that layer before you deselect the area, because it's kind of annoying when you go back the layer to add some effect and then you need to reselect that area again. It will be another process. And just give you some tip. When you try to create try to work on the new layer. If you think you kind of a little nervous when you do applying some effect, please work on the new layer, because if all the layers are all the work process is if applied in the one layer, it is hard to modify. So, but if you have too many layers in one project, it's hard to navigate and hard to figure out what layer you worked. So keep working. Consider how much layer you need, and criticize and keep thinking that whether you need a new layer or whether you don't need a new layer. Just keep thinking about while you're working on your project.
use that razor more than razor. I think it might look better in my rendering.
This is some weird. My hands are going to your forehead.
So where would you do that? Just use whatever.
And when you use brush tool, I think we need to modify the setting of the brush. So here, what type? When you go to, if you like to modify the brush tool as close to the actual brush, then double click the brush preset brush to go inside the brush properties. And then currently it's a basic panel. You can modify the size and opacity, but in advanced tab you can modify more in depth of the brush type. So you can change the setting to recognize your pen pressure if you're using a pen tablet. The pen pressure option is really good. It makes sure rendering really closer to the real hand drawing. Opacity with the light pressure, flow. So if you change the flow of the light pressure, then it applies as when you put less pressure, when you give less pressure, the opacity of the line is decreases to according to the pen pressure. So my recommendation is, if you like to modify your brush, modify the size and opacity in the basic tab and advanced tab. You can modify the size with heavy pressure and light pressure. And opacity is not relevant. I don't think the opacity is not really important, but the flow with light pressure, it might be really helpful. So if you like to increase the flow of the light pressure, it increases the opacity. If you decrease it, it's like it loses the opacity. And then the last thing is the edge. You can soften the edge, either sharpen the edge. To add some shade underneath on the inside of the underneath the desktop, what I'm going to do is to select the area under the desktop area, and then use brush tool to add some shade. So here, use select tool. It doesn't have to be like really accurate. And then use brush tool to add some shade. I'm going to use black because currently it's really dark, so I'd better use a big brush. I mean the dark color. Let's compare.
No, it has to be exception by
No, like, this thing is so crazy. I saw her walking away last week. That sounds really crazy. I think she was with Ibra.
What?
I think she was with Ibra. So I was trying to go to a workout class, and she was crossing the street. Well, I'm not going to start. I'm not going to start.
And then for the island, I think it's currently the material of the island is wood. So I whether I would apply the texture directly to the island rather than adding some color. So I'm gonna go to the Google to find the wood texture. Let's find any types of wood texture you'd like to apply for your island. I'm kind of like the rustic. And then please find the big size. So when you search in the Google, go to Tools. In Images tab, go to Tools, and then size. Change the size setting from any size to large size. Because if you use like small size image, it'll be really blurry, and it really kind of give the like negative impact to the viewers. And trying to find as a big material texture file, because I'm not going to create pattern for that area. I'm gonna directly paste into the rendering. So try to find try to consider the scale of the island with the material. And try to find the texture as flat as possible, like those patterns, which are flat. But this is not flat. This has some perspective. So try not to select that one. Try to find material which is like flat. I think this one has like 66,000. I don't believe that. 6,000. Let's download it. That thing is 6,000.
I heard it during the class.
Let's copy image from Google. Copy image. Then let's paste it on the new layer. Okay, so and then create a new layer for the island texture, island wooden texture. Then rename it to, let's see, I'm not sure. Let's paste it first. Paste it. So yeah, okay. Need to find a bigger image. Copy image and then paste it. Okay, great. So right after I paste it to the view, you can modify this toggle will be created right after you paste it to the sketchbook. So you can rescale it and you can change the position by moving by playing with the toggle. And then what is that? So when you find the right place for the material, then you might see the like transform symbol on around the middle of the top tab, which has circles on each corner. So click that, and then try to find the matching point on each corner of the island. So I think I forgot to draw the line for the edge of the island. But did you find the function? So it's, some functions are really easier than the Photoshop and some functions are not. So when you set, just click check mark to confirm. Then I might need to change the color, brightness. Is there an option for that? Option for...
Right.
And then let's see.
No, I still have it.
And let's go to the sofa. So that's I think the wooden texture looks okay. Let's go to the sofa. Let's see. So for sofa, you can either paint the sofa, or you can bring some texture for some area. I'm going to mix both for both technique, because the darker area, this area is really flat, so it would be better to attach a texture. But the top is really bright, so it has a little light color. So I might start from render the sofa using brush, and then add the texture later on. So first, add a new layer. Currently I have a new layer, empty layer, so I'm gonna use that. And then find the color. I'm using brush tool. Find the color. Just find any color that seems really close to the color of the sofa, and then pick.
Wow. Inspiring or inspiration? Let's clarify that one real quick.
Okay, I'm gonna paint first, whatever the edge are, and then use eraser, because I think it will be faster.
This new, like, you start tracing stuff language, so as artwork, and artwork goes.
So if you add some opacity in your brush tool, you can create shade while you are painting. So here you see my color pick was a little dark value, but I added some opacity. I use a 45% opacity for my paintbrush. So the first layer, application will be really bright color, and then but when I adding some brush stroke, it will create some darker value. So this is how I render the small elements using brush opacity. Compare your reference image. If you have any questions, please ask me. I'm always ready to answer to you. Since the corner, the left and right side of each pillow are really way darker than the middle area, So I'm gonna use very dark blue.
You don't put the other two after you're done. And he says you can
Mom, when is this gonna eventually be due?
Pardon me?
When is this due?
Due is week 13. So I mean not 14.
So we have 2 weeks.
It's just
3 weeks.
repeating your image.
Okay.
So you have 2 more 3 weeks.
And then like,
From-
so, like next week is in class.
Yes, work day.
Your resource library.
Okay.
And materials.
But I think there are several things you might need to take a look what I'm doing. So you can attend the class.
No, that's, I just want to curious as to like how much time you're gonna have to work with on that.
Yeah. So the total I put like 3 weeks for like class activity, and you have another week to before the submission.
Oh, okay.
Good.
So I kind of ignore the edges, the line work, because I think the using eraser right after I finish rendering would be more saving my time. Then keep like define the edges for the border. So I think I'm kind of like, finished. I'm kind of like current status. So I'm gonna use eraser to define remove the to define the borders.
I didn't do that. And now I have to put it down. I just like am really glad.
Excuse you.
And then the thing one additional thing you need for your sofa is that adding a texture. So you have the color, you have the shade, but what you need is adding a texture. So since you have all the color, what I'm going to plan is to adding a texture by multiplying the layer option. So if you find that's kind of just white textile texture, then you multiply it, and that will apply on the color, so that you can see the color and the texture at the same time. So let's find what is it? Canvas texture. Any types of texture you like to use for your sofa. Go to image tab and then try to find high res and white. So because we are going to multiply that layer to apply texture on the color rendering layer, so you need to have white color rather than blue color texture. If you multiply that texture on the current rendering, it makes your render really dark. So that is why we use white color rather than blue. Well, I would rather find a linen. White, high res. Oh no, copyright. High res. Oh, how about this? Oh no, high res. Okay, no. It's hard to find right texture without copyright. I think I want to use this one. I don't know. White. Oh, I like this. Oh, copyright. 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 Okay, I'll just do this. Oh. Let's do this. Okay, I select this one. It's more than 1,300 dimension. So right click the image and then copy image and then paste it. Position, shrink, scale, placement, scale, place, shrink, place, shrink more, no, shrink, so for this one, I'm going to enter to confirm, and then now you see on the layer editor, you see the normal was set it as a default setting of the layer option. Then click the normal, square, and then you'll see the drop down button as you see in the Photoshop. And then select the multiply, and then you see the texture is applied on the sofa in the preserving the current color. And I better change the opacity of the layer because the texture is too huge. What I'm going to do is just give some like idea that it's like fabric, it's not leather. And also I'm gonna use eraser tool to erase the unwanted area, and use soft edge eraser tool because the texture doesn't have to be really clean, should not be cover the whole sofa area. So it is okay to erase more than like the eraser can go inside of the border line work of the sofa, because texture, because that's what you aware is that what you need to aware of is that just try not to show to see and show the texture above or beyond the borderline of the sofa. Okay. I should find a more better texture than this, but I think it's not too bad. Where is my layer tab? Okay, so and then I go back to the sofa again because I still need to like define the edge. Next thing I'm going to do is the beams. Let's use magic wand tool. So I should be in the new layer. So that is why I told you that keep aware that which layer you are working on. So select a new layer or create a new layer and rename it to beam. And then use magic wand tool. Oh, before we start, okay, let's do it. Okay, select, okay, here. When you use magic wand tool, always activate the sketch layer, because the sketch layer is the layer which has those line work information. So use sketch layer and then make sure that the select option is add to selection. I selected the whole beams except the plane facing toward the floor area because according to the reference image, the planes facing toward the floor, facing toward the bottoms, have some like brightness, really bright due to the reflection. So I'm going to select only the front side of the plane of the beams and the inside the space in between the two beams. This area. Okay. So the selection in mind. The top, the ceiling with the roof. Is it roof? There's a square of a triangle thingy on the top, and there's a there also it has a small beam. So I'm gonna include that area too. Define any dark color. Uncheck the select tool and then go back to the beam layer. Always go back to the beam layer. Don't do the same thing what I did just a few minutes ago. And then just pick a color. So it's really closer to the black color, but still have some value in the color. And then use solid fill. I'm gonna use solid fill, or I'm gonna use brush tool rather than solid fill, because I would like to have some. I would like to add some shading effect as well. So I'm gonna use brush tool, and then my brush will have some opacity to adding some shadings. So first, draw that area, fill color. This is just a single layer of the paint. So second layer. Third layer. I'm gonna try to maintain the center has a little brightness, and then the corners have some shading. There's some darker value than the middle. Am I in the right layer? Okay, yeah, in the beams. Control D. I like it. Easy peasy. Woohoo. I should do this in the previous class. I use select tool because I really worry about having some white area around the corner, around the edges of the selection. But that worked really well.
Sorry, what's the question?
So when I'm saving this, when do I save it as?
PDF, PSD, Adobe Photoshop.
Oh.
And what else? I need to define the beams, the reflected area. So I need to go back to the sketch layer again to select the reflected area. Zoom in. Oh, I see those white area, but it will be okay because my rendering is big enough. to hide those mistakes. See it has some white area around the edges. Okay, so I'm not going to use magic wand too. What's happening? Go back to the beam layer and then use brush tool, and this time I'm not going to use that color. I'm going to use a little more bluish or greenish color rather than that one, but still more like neutral color. I'm going to use airbrush and brush tool. Okay. Like it doesn't have to be exactly the same. I can't do that. But I really like that. It's really mimic the current view. Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're gonna be working on this.
Yes, next week. Bye. Have a nice weekend. I think not very much people will, because as I mentioned, the main light source is placed in the middle, and then it gets dark when it goes further from the center. So the radiant field is really close to the current light setting. So let's click the radial field and then pick a color for the shade. I would like to give some warmth in the view, so I'm gonna pick a little